So in my last video, I talked about how I got arrested for the first time at the very end of it. And I was like, yeah, maybe I'll talk about it some other time. And I guess we're doing that as the next video because I didn't know what was the next thing I was going to talk about. So here we are. To give a little context for those who didn't watch the last video, I bought my Nintendo Switch after going through a hooping, however, I don't even know how people say that. After going through a lot of trouble to get it, right? So I'm super excited. It was like a midnight release, so I was on my way back home. And about 2 to 3 minutes away from getting home, I go past what was essentially the second to last, not the second to last. It was more like, it was like three stoplights away basically from my house. One of the lights begins to turn yellow as I'm going past it, right? And I was close. When you're driving, like, I don't even know how to explain this. Okay, I'm sure anybody who's driven has had this experience where you're driving, but then the light turns yellow, but then you don't know whether you want to stop or not because you're at that perfect distance where you're close enough to the light where you could still go, where you think you can still go and make it before it turns red, but you're also far away enough where it's like, okay, maybe I should stop. So it's kind of like that hesitation, and that's where I was at. But I decided to just go because, like I said, I was excited. Like I just wanted to get home and play the Nintendo Switch 2, right? Try it out. So I just decided to go anyway, right? I didn't really care. I didn't like go like an extra 20 miles an hour to go past it. I just kind of accelerated a little and went past. And so as soon as I passed the light, in my rearview mirror I see, just out of nowhere, like cop lights start flashing, like police officer car lights start flashing. And I was next to this other person who was also driving, right? Or they were in front of me, right? I wasn't really sure if the cop was going like signaling at me or the person who was in front of me. So I kind of like slow down and I noticed the officer kind of starts to speed up, and then he gets close to me and he starts slowing down. So I was like, oh, okay, he's coming after me. So I park on the side of the road and he comes out of his car, walks over to me. I turn down my music because I was playing music, and he's like, hey, my name is Officer something something something, I don't really remember. And he was like, do you know why I pulled you over? And I was like, no. Well, I said no, but I was assuming that he probably stopped me because I was speeding or something and I didn't know. But I just said no, I don't know. And he was like, yeah, you crossed the intersection as the light turned from yellow to red. And I was like, oh. I didn't know what to do because this was my first time getting pulled over. Like I didn't know what to do. I was just like, okay. I don't know if I was supposed to be like sorry and or like engage in conversation. So I was just like, oh, that was literally it. Oh yeah, I pulled you over because you crossed the light as it went from yellow to red. Oh, that was it. That was literally it. So I realized that I should probably say something else, and I try to I try to just say something, and then as soon as I open my mouth to utter words, he's like, do you have your registration and license? And I was like, oh yeah, I was just like, it's like it's like I remembered when I was in driving school, like if you get pulled over, they're gonna ask you for like your registration and license. And so he sat down and I was like, oh, I remember that. Yeah. That's what he's supposed to ask me. Of course. So I was like excited for some reason or something. I was like, oh yeah. So I go in my car cabinet, pull out the registration, get my driver's license from my wallet, and I swear, if anybody was in the car with me, they'd see how nervous I was because I literally dropped my registration as I was handing it over to him. I was handing him the paper, and then before he was able to grab it, it just fell because I let go of it too early. I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I was like, it was so funny. So I give him my registration and license, and he heads back over to his car to do, his officer stuff. I don't know what exactly, but, officer stuff. And during that time, I'm just sitting in the car, basically waiting for him to come back. So while I'm sitting there, I'm kind of just thinking to myself, yeah, you know, this isn't too bad. Like, he's probably just gonna give me a like a ticket or something, or not a ticket. He's probably just gonna give me a warning because, like I said, I've been driving for like a year and a half at that point. That was my first time getting pulled over. I was like, oh, he's probably gonna like see that, like, if he pulls up my records, right, and then he's gonna be like, oh, okay, you know. And I didn't think it was that big of a deal, right? So I thought he's just gonna give me a warning, and then all of a sudden, it's just like out of thin air. I made, I had like an epiphany, but not the good kind. Did I even use that word correctly? No, I'm thinking epiphany. Hold on, I'm searching up what epiphany means. Epiphany is the moment of sudden or significant realization or, oh, perfect, dude. Yes, of course I knew what epiphany is. Yeah, so I had an epiphany, but not the good kind. I'm just sitting there and I realize, wait a second, my registration is expired. That's not good. So basically, a couple months prior to this happening, I had a reminder go off on my phone telling me that I needed to renew my registration, right? It was expiring on, I think, January 8th or something like that, right? When that reminder came up, I told my mom, I was like, hey, my registration needs to be renewed, because it's like a whole thing where if she's the one who she co-signed me with the car and blah 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 blah, so she has to be the one to do it. It's, you know, just a lot of technical stuff, but basically she has to be the one to renew the paper, right? So I texted her and I was like, hey mom, my registration, I'm pretty sure it expired, so I'm gonna need it to be renewed. And she was like, oh yeah, sure, I got you, like, you know, obviously, yeah. So I knew that it was gonna be a while before I got my registration back, so I was thinking to myself, okay, I'm gonna have to drive, you know, I don't drive like a lunatic or anything. I drive at like around the speed limit, like usually it's like five above. But I was like, okay, I should be extra careful because I DoorDash and I drive a lot, so somebody like me who does a lot of driving has higher chance, technically speaking, of getting pulled over, and then I don't have my registration expired, and then who knows what happens from there, right? So during the next coming months, I made the decision to just drive even more prudently than normal. And of course, the fact that, you know, months go by and I still don't get my new registration, because it had been so long since I texted her that I kind of just forgot, like, completely, that like she needed to renew the registration. I just completely forgot. And when I got arrested, that's when it finally came back to me, like, oh my gosh, my registration is still expired. Like, I never got a new one. So that's when I was really concerned, because at that point it's like, okay, what's gonna happen now? There's two ways it could go, right? He's gonna look at my registration, he's gonna see the expiration date and then realize, oh, it's expired. Or he was gonna put my information into like the system, like his system or whatever, pull up my information, and then from there notice that my registration is expired. So basically, it wasn't gonna be like, oh, maybe he's not gonna notice it. Like, no, he was gonna notice it, right? So I was very concerned because out of like, what happens when I don't know what happens when your registration expires. I was just thinking like, oh, he's gonna be like, hey man, so your registration expired. I'm gonna have to take you back with me or something like that. Like, that's what I thought was gonna happen. So I was just sitting in the car, extremely nervous, right, for like 15 minutes, because I don't know what was going on in his car, but it took him like 15 minutes to get everything settled, right? It's literally like when you're in kindergarten and you do something bad and their teacher puts you in the naughty corner and she's like, reflect on your mistakes or whatever, right? That was literally me. Like, I was just sitting in the car doing nothing, right? Waiting for this guy to come back as I just reflected on my mistakes. Like, damn, man, I should have just stopped at the light and then I would have been home by now. Would have been home on my Switch 2, having the best day of my life, and instead I'm just sitting here. Like I said, 15 minutes or so go by, and he comes back to me, and at this point I'm just like, all right, tell me, just go ahead, tell me. I was just fully expecting him to come back and be like, hey, so man, so your registration is expired, so I'm gonna have to take you with me, right? That was what I was fully expecting. My car is just gonna sit there. I'm gonna have to call like my parents and they're gonna have to like do something about it, right? Like that was what I was expecting, right? So he comes back to me and he's like, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't even remember what he said. Okay, I think I've got it. So he comes up to me and he's like, hey man, so I'm just gonna give you a ticket for tonight. And then he goes, or you can either try to go to court and like dispute it or pay for it there, or you can just pay it or prepay it online and then, you know, get rid of it. And so he's like, do you know where the courthouse is? And I'm like, no, no. So he looks at me and points in a random, I kid you not, he just points in a direction, the general direction of the court, and he says, yeah, it's over there. And I'm like, what? I don't actually say what, but I just like look at him like flabbergasted, like, what? What kind of instruction is that? And he could probably tell just based off my visual expression how confused and just how utterly useless that information was. So he then proceeds to go, yeah, the address is also on the ticket. And I was like, okay, yeah. I was also really confused by the fact that he was seemingly like trying to get me to go to court for it, right? Which was very confusing because like, why would I go to, what would I go to court for? Just to be like, yeah, I actually didn't, right? I actually, that didn't happen. This officer is lying, and please, I don't know, man. It's just like, what happened. There's no like extra layers to it. So I was just like, what would I be going to court for, right? So he just explains to me everything because he could probably tell that I like never got pulled over. Like I said, he could probably see that in the registration and also just by the way I was acting. Like he could probably tell that I never got pulled over. So he was just like explaining everything on the ticket and all that. And the entire time I took in none of that information because the only thing going through my head was, why is he not talking about the expired registration? Why is he not talking about it? That was the only thing going. I was like, and just, you know, just nodding, just nodding. But in my head, it was just like, okay, so what about the expired? Obviously, I'm not gonna mention it, but like I was just like sitting there, just nodding at him while there was just a completely different story going on in my head. So eventually, he's like, okay, you know, I'm gonna go, drive safe, you know, blah blah. I'm like, okay. He gives me back my registration and license. And I just sit there, you know, flabbergasted. It's also weird because he went back to his car and then just like never left. Like I sat there for like an extra, I don't know, 2 to 3 minutes and he never left. I was just, okay. But anyway, he gave me back my stuff and I was very confused. So I immediately look at my registration because I'm like, there's no way he didn't notice it, right? Like there's no way. I'm not that lucky. There's no way. So I look at my registration and sure enough, it wasn't the fact that he didn't notice it. It was the fact that I misread it. It didn't say January 8th. It said August 1st of 2025, by the way. 2025. I'm not talking about like 2030 or something. Anyway, it said August 1st, not January 8th. I don't even know how I felt during that moment. It was just like a combination of emotions, relief, stupidity. That's not an emotion, but you get the idea. Anger, I guess. I don't know, man. I just felt all sorts of different way. But anyway, I put my stuff back and, you know, start hitting the road again. And, you know, officer still hasn't left. Like at this point, I'm at like another light, but I can still see his lights all the way back there. He just never moved. I was just like, okay, man, whatever. So I head back home. And in my mind, I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna pay. Like, I wanted to play on the Switch, obviously, but I didn't want to take care of the ticket, obviously. So I read the information on the ticket, and it was like, the trial, you have to pay the ticket before the trial date, right? Which was like June 23rd, I think, right? So I was like, okay, I'll just pay it right now, and I never have to worry about it again. So I called. It puts me on an automated phone system. And then I have to put in like some information that's on the ticket, like during the call. After like 5 minutes, the automated system is like, sorry, this ticket has not been processed yet. And I'm just like, wait, what? What do you mean has not been processed yet? What does that even mean? So at this point, I was just like, whatever, man. I don't care. I'll try it tomorrow. Because keep in mind, this was at like, I don't know, close to 1, probably like quarter to 1 in the morning or something. I just wanted to start setting up my Switch too, right? So I was just like, okay, whatever, I'll take care of this in the morning, right? I tried, it didn't work, whatever. Next morning comes up, and I tried to do the thing again with the automated phone system. Same as I get the same message, right, about not being able to be processed, the ticket. So instead, I decide to call like an actual person, like customer service, and they basically asked me for all the same information, right, all of that, and it's the exact same thing. They're like, yeah, this ticket hasn't been processed yet. So I was like, wait, what does that mean though? And they're like, it takes 2 weeks for when you get the ticket for it to be processed into our system, and then that's when you can pay it off. And I was like, wait, but that doesn't make I was just like, okay, right? And they're like, do you need anything else? No, I hang up all of that. But in my mind, I was like, but how does that make sense? Because I got the ticket on June 5th, right? The day the Switch 2 came out. 2 weeks, that's 14 days, right? So if you do the math, right, 14 plus 5, that's what, 19? The trial date is on June 23rd, but you have to prepay the ticket. Like, if you're gonna prepay the ticket, it has to be 2 days before the trial date, essentially, right? So June 21st. So in my mind, I was wondering, why is the date between when you can actually pay the ticket and the deadline for when you can actually pay it so close? There's a 2-day gap. No, 2 days. Yeah, 2 days. Well, 3 days. You get the idea, right? It's a small gap, right? So I was really confused. I was like, why is there such a small gap in between the 2 dates? But I was just like, whatever, it's still enough time. I'll just put a reminder, and then that, like, on June 19th or 20th or something like that, I'll just prepay it, right? A couple days later, I was looking for the ticket because I couldn't remember where I put it, and turns out it was just hidden under some like other paper that I put over it. But I found the ticket, and I looked back at it, and I noticed something. You know how I said that the trial date was June 23rd? It turns out that it wasn't June 23rd. It was actually July 23rd. 0723. Now things were starting to make sense, because it's not just a 2-day, it's not 2 days in between being able to pay the ticket and the trial date. It's more like a month or a month and a half, which is, that makes more sense. That makes more sense is my point. So if there's anything I took away from this, is that I suck at reading dates. I am absolutely garbage at them, and I should be ashamed. Do not be like me. Read your dates correctly.